live. Here I come. There I go. Are you live? You are live. Yes, we are live. Oh, kind of. It doesn't appear that we're live, Ryan.
I can still hear you, but the screen
Yeah,
shows your cover
yeah.
photo. Yeah, that's
That's
kind of weird.
exactly. Let's see what's going on here.
Is it your
I don't want
background? Click your background off.
my background.
Yeah, is that as your background? Like, what is
No, no,
something
that's
that's
not
your
even. That's not
overlay or
even.
your?
Oh, hold on. I gotta hide that. There
There
we
you
go.
go.
I'm hitting too many buttons here.
Yeah,
Gosh, I am dangerous in studios. This is
but
why I'm desperately in need of somebody to be running this board. I I was going to open up with just me, a shot of me, and it is a shot of me because and then it's a shot of you, and I must have clicked on the wrong button. All right, well, hold on, Ryan. We'll get to you here in a second. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today, Thursday, 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, YouTube, X, Facebook, and Rumble. We are live. We're continuing to just drive into this year 2024, more in 2024, and we know that there is more of everything. There's more abundance, there's more life, there's more prosperity, but there's also more darkness, more destruction, more death. This continues to play itself out day in, day out. And as I've shared with you, Let My People Go, the one of the most important documentaries that you could possibly lay your eyes on. Another one that I just uncovered also is part of a gentleman who was interviewed in the Let My People Go, Colonel Sean Smith. We're going to hear from him a little bit today. I've got a video that I want to share with you. And then finally, was the Illinois 2022 general election valid? You know, as we build into the 2024 election season, the general election season for the presidential election season, more information continues to come out. Not only Let My People Go, which uncovers all the craziness of 2020, but every day gives us an opportunity to understand and gain knowledge of what is going on in our culture, the undermining, what is happening. How are we seeing that faith and families are being systematically dismantled right in front of our very eyes? We are starting a series at the Tabernacle. Actually, it started last Sunday, called 5 Star Families, where we talk about families and what it takes to hold a family together today, especially in the climate that we're facing. These are the toughest times ever when it comes to uh, attacks on not only Christians but Christian families. So there's a lot that we're going to deal with. As I encourage you, go out, watch the documentary "Let My People Go" by David Clements. Ryan is here with me again today, as always. Usually, not always, but usually.
yeah.
But Ryan had a chance with his wife to watch the "Let My People Go" documentary,
Yep.
and I'm going to let him dissect a little bit about it. So, what did you think, Ryan, after watching it?
Well, I have even more doubt and questions, believe it or
Yes.
not. When you watch 2,000 Mules and you saw the breakdown of what these ballots and these harvesting of ballots that shouldn't be allowed to happen in these states, and they change the way they changed to the pandemic level voting, where they just said any and all people to the voting booth, and you didn't have to show who you were, you had to prove who you were. You could shove 40 or 50 ballots in a box and they could count it. The machines they use, whether you believe in the Dominion thing or not, the machines are connected to the internet. They are live. They have to be able to connect because the counties and municipalities that are running these elections have to be able to communicate with the precincts and stuff. So these machines are connected to the internet. So your vote is going through the gap of the air that they described in the documentary, and it's not safe. So I encourage all of you who vote with a paper ballot. And even then, you can see as the documentary displays, they're counting fake ballots. There's people that are judges and workers that are filling out ballots in their spare time and shoving it through, and the machine's counting it. So we've got a lot of problems, and we have to find a way to start winning some of these elections in order to change and dissect some of these wrongdoings. But my
Yes, and you know what?
really well done, and
Go ahead.
the work that the professor put into this and uncovering and exposing what's happening, I think it's very important that everybody in America needs to see this.
Well, we were sharing this, and I'm going to share my screen here real quick and pull that up because you said something that was very valuable. And it's this little piece right here, and it tells us about the elections. This is the article from the American Thinker, and the American Thinker comes out and asks just specific questions. Were the voter rolls accurate as required by the National Voter Registration Act of 1993? And I think I better adjust it here on the screen a little bit so everybody can see it. There we go. Were they accurate? According to National Voter Registration Act, the NVRA or the NRVA, were the votes counted from the eligible voters as required by the U.S. Constitution? Was the number of votes counted equal to the number of voters who voted? Was the maximum error rate allowed of one ballot in 125,000 adhered to as required in the Help America Vote Act of 2002? And what we find out, the answer in this article, as it's covered, is that's unequivocally no. Were the voters were the voter rolls accurate as required by the National Voter Registration Act? No. The database, arguably one of the most important in the nation, may stun you. Were the voters, as I keep repeating myself because I have to reread it, the screen isn't matching up with my article here. So we found over 4 million potential errors affecting 38% of the database.
4 million.
Were the votes counted from eligible voters as required by the U.S. Constitution? We identified over 700,000 apparent violations affecting almost 590,000 unique votes. I'm going to adjust it on the screen. I don't know why the ads are showing up on that article. That wasn't the way when I loaded it. Here we go. Was the number of votes counted equal to the number of voters who voted? By comparing official records, we discovered more than 27,000 votes counted than voters who voted. And finally, was the number of ballots in air valid according to the Help America Vote Act of 2002? The permitted error rate is 33. The number of apparent violations is almost 590,000. It's fascinating. What's that?
Good Lord, the numbers.
Well, so here's within the article, and I think this is important. Election integrity advocates have grown tired of the information war that declares our elections as the safest and most secure in history. We keep hearing that repeated, right? No matter how many outrageous mistakes we uncover, officials defending our current political system as representative of the will of the American people always seem to find an excuse to dismiss our serious concerns. This has given rise to a new movement, United Sovereign Americans, a national volunteer organization of concerned Americans from both political parties that is measuring the legal validity of our elections state by state. Based on the data provided by the Illinois State Board of Elections in January 25, 2023, there are serious causes for concern about election validity in the land of Lincoln. Election validity is not about who won. I'll repeat that. Election validity is not about who won. It's about accuracy and compliance under the law. Otherwise, it's not valid, period. Right. Meaning if anything happens, it's not a valid election.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not valid, period, which means the reported results are not valid either. In short, we have no way to determine for sure who won any election in Illinois in 2022. Man, that's a bold statement. An article, obviously, you're not going to see covered.
Oh, no, never.
In the main.
You think the local Panagraph would mention that? You think the local news outlets, the national news, cover that at state level? Well, you're not going to hear that anybody.
And the sophistication of this, I don't expect our elected officials, especially those who are responsible for elections, mostly
Mhm.
your county clerks,
Right.
to have the wherewithal, because first and foremost, this is so beyond their scope.
Yeah.
How this is happening isn't by them doing anything.
Right.
It's baked into the cake.
Yeah.
When they step forward, it is already happening with
Mhm.
or without them.
Yep.
How these elections are being rigged or are invalid
Mhm.
is being done right underneath their nose without their knowledge.
You can be one of the best county clerks in history, and you can have it taken from you out from underneath your nose, with no control whatsoever.
Well, and I think that's the fascinating part about it, and I think that's what I also want to share with the audience today. I do appreciate everybody jumping in, joining. I didn't get my comment section. Hey there, Bob. Thanks for joining. I always get the Bob Berwin Bob from up north, Berwin Township. Bob Kelsey. Hey, Bob. I talked with Darren Bailey today. I was going to have him to come back on the show today. We talked about everything that I'm sharing with you today. Darren and I are constantly communicating about, because as Christian conservative men, we want to deliver the knowledge and truth. We're not beholden to the powers to be, any elected official, any PAC, any government entity that might dictate who we are and what we say, because what
Mhm.
we know that we stand on not only the rock of Christ Jesus, but we stand on the Constitution of the United States that gives us our rights. Our rights come from our creator, not from the government. But I want to definitely, you were saying a few more things. I kind of cut you off on the
Oh,
let
no.
my people go.
Just in general, the detailed work that they did uncovering the specific details of the voting machines. Now, we all heard about the Dominion lawsuit against Fox News and how that worked out. They ended up settling for a bajillion dollars because they didn't want to deal with it. But we need more answers from Dominion. Now, and in the documentary, if you've seen, I'm not going to spoil it, but they changed the name of the machine host and the little cartoon they play to make it more interesting. But
Domination.
the real problem is the actors behind these companies that are giving out these machines. I don't know how many machines does McLean County use? Do you know that
Well,
number?
we
Every per precinct, right?
well, yeah, I mean, bottom line is and there is a logic and analytics test that they're to run on those prior to each
Right.
election,
Yeah.
which really is irrelevant because that has nothing to do with
Right.
how it's cooked. It's cooked through
So
the gap, not through the machine. They think
yeah,
that, oh, it's the machine. Let's
right,
examine the machine.
right.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's
no,
beyond the
I'm sure
machine.
the
You
machine.
can
I'm
have
sure the machine works.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure the machine is doing what it was intended to do most of the time.
yeah. So
So
the detail they broke down in which they saw, okay, they came out over and over again. Dominion said these don't connect to the internet. They're one way. They all read the ballots. They do their thing. They scan. It's just like having a Scantron test in schools. They don't go live. They don't sell information. They don't do this. You can't change anything. What we saw and what there was actual proof of, that you can simply flip the votes of the candidate within 2 seconds of logging in to the software that they were using. So it actually can be done. And when you saw an election, and I don't know if anybody noticed in 2020 how if you scroll to the bottom of the Chiron and they were showing the vote counts in states, Trump actually lost 40,000 votes at one point of a flip, because as you're counting, you never go down when you're counting votes on election night. That's really not how this works. You either gain or you stay the same roughly as the metric goes. As counts increase, the numbers increase. You're never going to go backwards. Why was Trump losing 20,000 votes over some of these states? And then Biden just
as
suddenly
Biden is
gained
gaining,
20,000.
yeah,
That shouldn't
yeah, as
happen.
Biden.
Unless there's an
Well,
actual error, that shouldn't happen.
it's a good segue to the part that I want to bring out tonight. This is something I uncovered. I'm going to continue to give your homework here at the DPB show. I'm going to challenge you to go out to get the information, the knowledge. I mean, I don't care if it's only one person that hears from Ryan or myself and is encouraged to seek out the information, the knowledge of what is
Mhm.
happening. One of the things that is happening is this very man right here, Colonel Sean Smith. I want you to hear his bio. He's part of the Let My People Go video, but let's just hear from him real
Air
quick.
Force officer. I served as a space and missile operations officer, but I also spent a lot of time doing operational planning and working in a field called special technical operations, which deals with sensitive capabilities. And I also had assignments where I was designing and then executing operational testing of Air Force weapon systems. And then at the end of my career, I was assigned to an office under the Office of Secretary of Defense called the Directorate of Operational Test and Evaluation, where my responsibilities were to oversee the operational testing of all space systems under development and operational test in the Department of Defense, except for satellite communications. So in that capacity and throughout my career, I had a pretty significant exposure to the kind of threats that foreign nation states pose to our weapon systems and national security systems, including, in particular, the cybersecurity threats. Early in my career, I had written some of the first operational procedures for what at the time was called computer network defense for the Department of Defense, what would now be called cyber defense. And I also, after I retired from the Air Force in 2017, I spent about a year, little over a year, as a contractor, supporting my old office as a favor to my old boss, doing something called adversarial assessment, where I was helping a team on a project to assess what some specific adversaries could understand and do with the intellectual property and information and access they had stolen and exploited for U.S. national security and defense systems and with our national security contractors and defense organizations. So that was my background prior to 2018. 2018, I left Washington, D.C. To come back home, fully intent on never having anything to do with the government again.
Imagine that.
And then in November 2020, I was sitting at home after voting and in person, and I read a news article. And that news article was discussing voter turnout in Colorado. And the claims that they were making in the article about voter turnout didn't seem plausible to me. It was unusual based on what I had seen from, in my own community. And so I started doing what I was trained to do. I had a couple master's degrees on active duty. I spent a year as a fellow at the RAND Corporation as part of Project Air Force doing research. I have a pretty significant research background and have done statistical analysis before. So I started downloading and looking at Colorado's voter registration and turnout data and doing regression analyses over the course of the last, let's say, 6 to 12 elections. And in the course of doing so, I saw some patterns in voter registration and turnout, which didn't seem plausible to me. And so the more I looked, the more I found that I was concerned about. Finally, I, for the first time in my entire adult life, read about our voting systems, and I started reading voting system technical data packages or manuals, and then also the test reports on those voting systems. And because of my background and expertise in the testing of complex computer-based systems, and because I understand very well what sort of testing is required to determine the degree to which those types of systems are vulnerable to compromise from cyber threats, when I read those test plans and test reports, I was extraordinarily concerned. In fact, I knew we were in trouble. So that's how I got involved in election integrity. So what Americans should understand about their voting systems is in particular, when you look at the top 5 vendors. So the top 5 vendors of voting systems in the United States are in order. They are ES&S, and then Dominion Voting Systems, and then Unison, and then Hart InterCivic, or Hart InterCivic and Unison, depending on when you look, and then Clear Ballot. All of those voting systems are using computers and components that are manufactured overseas. For the most part, they're manufactured in the People's Republic of China.
Imagine that.
What
Yeah.
that means to
China.
the average citizen is almost nothing, because we haven't been informed by our own government of what it already knows.
I want to pause it there for a second. What that means to the normal average citizen really is nothing.
Yeah.
And in fact, what that really means to the normal average election judge, county clerk, election
Mhm.
authority is really nothing.
Yep.
They're going to argue based on their personal pride of who they are. You're
Mhm.
attacking them if you say that elections are fraudulent,
Right.
and it has nothing to do with them. In fact, that's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
They are unwilling. I mean, I don't know about you. I know a few county clerks out there, and they're not bad people.
Yeah.
I don't think they're intentionally trying to defraud anyone.
Right.
But what I do know is this: they don't have the criteria or the credentials that Colonel Sean Smith has,
Yep.
or Professor David Clements.
Yep.
Now, when you're the smartest person in the room, you're in trouble. That's what I believe about this show.
Yep.
Is if I'm the smartest guy, rambling here today, then I'm in trouble. Obviously, I need to go do something else. But I think it's been put on my heart, and I believe this is God inspired, that I do what I'm doing. It started in the radio industry and has, blossomed into the world of the World Wide Web, or what they call streaming
Yeah.
services, where you can talk to multiple platforms simultaneously. And we do
Yeah.
that here on Rumble, YouTube, X, and Facebook. But these are the experts. Colonel Sean Smith, as he said, I was going home after a career in the
Mhm.
Air Force.
Yeah.
I had seen enough already, because most people, they do, right? You
Yeah.
get into situations where you have to listen to, someone like Joe Biden or JB Pritzker. And you're like, my gosh, who wants to deal
Yeah.
with those
Yeah. It's
guys?
like beating a dead horse. Well, government jobs and politicians and the presidency and Congress, those are supposed to be grueling jobs that you're supposed to be short termed. This system wasn't designed to be a 50-year career or a 100-year career. It was supposed to be grueling, and it was supposed to be hard and slow so that it would make you just, all right, I'm done. But everybody in Congress that spends 50 years says, well, I can't do anything my first term. Great. Learn how to be faster with your approach to get things done. If you're not, then you should be out. You had 40 years to get things done. And if you sign on to one bill, you have credit to one bill in your name, you don't need to be there anymore. You have people
Well, and
dying
not only that,
because they're there till their 90s. The system's
well,
broken. And now we're seeing how broken it is in election
well,
cycle.
and you hit upon a good point, especially, I think I saw this in a meme. If we're not going to read the 3,000 page bills, then let's go ahead and sneak in their term limits. Why?
Right.
Because you're going to hear the excuse from the elected officials that are supposed to serve us. They work for us. We don't work for them.
Right.
That if you're in there a certain amount of period of time, you become, you get into positions of leadership. You head committees. You're the chair of a committee.
Right.
Uh, and ultimately, I don't know how that benefits the people.
No.
I'm still looking. I mean, I heard it today from another person who just won their primary, and she's been on my show. She
Mhm.
said, well, he was in a leadership position, or he headed up a committee,
Right.
so it's Tim Ozing is who we were referring to. Tim
Mhm.
Unexpectedly or expectedly resigned, but yet says he's still going to help out with the Republican Party here in Illinois. Then why did you resign? But he
Right.
also is one that's trying to put together the big tent mentality. And, okay, what does that mean? Big tent. I mean, bottom line is unfortunately, it's probably better if you have your tent and I have my tent,
Yeah.
and we have a competition on whose rules are going to rule. Right now, Tim Ozinga or any of those folks that were falling in line with other candidates, Tim Ozinga was very vocal about his support for Richard Irvin back in the 2022 gubernatorial primary.
Mhm.
Bottom line is your guy lost. Your guy lost this time. He's not he's an anti-Trumper, but the fact that we would even breathe that word anti-Trumper in our party, to
Right.
me, is almost unacceptable.
Yeah.
Net of it is we have a nominee. We have President Donald J. Trump
Right.
as our nominee. He is our last great hope. I
Yeah.
mean, for our
But
country.
you look at the infighting, and even the Democrat level, they've got the different factions of their party, and they don't disagree with hardly anything. But what they do agree on is that when they have a candidate, they support wholeheartedly, 100%, regardless if they disagree with it or not. You've got so much infighting in the Republican Party. Now we're fighting conservative commentators and making them to be the enemies, and we're not worried about the socialists, the communists, and the people running our country currently and turning our kids into mutilated Ninja Turtles. We're worried about infighting about I don't like Trump, I want DeSantis, or I want Nikki Haley. Why can't we just do this? We're worried about who we are as a Republican Party and not fighting the real enemy, the evil Democrat Party who's trying to destroy this country.
Well, and it's bigger than just
Yeah.
and I think it's bigger, so much bigger. And I think that's what the Colonel Sean Smith points
Yeah,
out.
and that's what this
I want
documentary leads
I want
to.
to bring him back on stage because I
Yeah.
want you to hear, because he was just about ready to go into an area that I think is so important.
About the risks to supply chain and the risks of compromise and the introduction of vulnerabilities and exploits in those systems. So the People's Republic of China is a geopolitical adversary of the United States, without a doubt. We are well aware that they have been penetrating, infiltrating, and exploiting the computer systems and networks of the United States. This is a
Yes.
nation state level campaign. So when you have your computer systems and components, for example, the motherboards on most Dell computer systems and most Hewlett Packard computer systems are manufactured in China, and you can see it for yourself. Even the trusted platform modules that Dell uses are in fact manufactured in China. The TPM, or trusted platform module, is a component that's supposed to authenticate the other hardware components to make sure you don't have a supply chain compromise inserted into the hardware level. There's no way that we can trust systems that are manufactured in China by Chinese workers under the oversight or with the influence of agents of the Ministry of State Security, which is a gigantic organization that is focused, among many other tasks, on penetration and exploitation of Western and particularly United States information systems. So even when you look at for example, Dell and Hewlett Packard computers, and Hart InterCivic uses Hewlett Packard, but ES&S and Dominion and Unison and ClearBallot all use Dell systems. So even when you look at their computer processors, the central processing units, or CPUs, their chipsets, those chipsets are nominally made by the Intel Corporation, a US company. But when you look at the personnel that are manufacturing those computers or those central processing units, a lot of them are foreign engineers or foreign workers that are here under H-1B visas. For example, on the Intel Xeon processors, the server processors that were manufactured down at the Chandler, Arizona plant, when I looked up the BIOS engineer, it was a Chinese national on an H-1B visa. So when I look at that based on my background, what I understand, what I've seen exploited and targeted and executed by these foreign organizations, the nation states like Russia and China and North Korea and Iran, they operate what are called advanced persistent threats. There are at least 18 acknowledged advanced persistent threats. These are organizations, not individuals, and they are organizations focused on sophisticated and sometimes exquisite computer network and computer system attacks. In China in particular, the advanced persistent threats, some of them are massive organizations. I'm talking about organizations with 12,000 or more people. They have whole campuses. They're larger than, many US universities, larger than many US defense organizations. And they are solely focused on the exploitation and penetration and infiltration of US and Western technology. They work along with organizations within their...
I mean, should I continue
Man.
to let this play?
It
I mean,
sure sounds like China's the problem, doesn't it?
Well, and here we come out of Let My People Go with David
Yeah.
Clements,
Yep.
just outlining and stepping us through
Mhm.
everything that just transpired. Now you take that one step further in a guy like Colonel Sean Smith. And I have to tell you, let me go back to getting him off screen for a second. I have to tell you, and you as my audience, and I so appreciate you joining us. Obviously, Ryan put his link in the comment section, the Ryan Mac Show. I have to tell you, this is not no different than Let My People Go. This was something that I really haven't been focused on. I truly was taking more time than I should have. I kept hearing from people and hearing from people. It's the machines. Well, it's really not the machines per se. It's
Mhm.
it's the engineering behind the
Yeah.
machine.
Yeah.
It's much deeper than just the machine, because it's
Right.
not the machine that's sitting down at the courthouse that's the problem. I mean, it is, but it isn't,
Right. It's the
because
access. You know, we talk about all politics is about access. Jeffrey Epstein was the access into the world of trafficking and the political access he had. He was the access guy. He wasn't the main guy involved in the ring. He was the access to everybody. This is the same thing. These machines and these connections, they weren't the main problem. They were the access to be able to steal the information.
Joe Biden, what we were selling was access to
Yeah.
Joe Biden. Hunter
Yep.
Biden was selling access.
Yeah.
This is where people show me the evidence. Show me the evidence. I love it when they,
Yep.
you know what? I don't think
Yeah.
that we can really show the common person. I mean,
Yeah.
myself included here. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I'm some expert,
Oh, I know.
on cybersecurity and
Right.
systems and analytical data. And, as he said, I understand a little bit of statistical analysis because
Mhm.
that was my background at Illinois State University in my psychology degree. I took a little bit in statistical analysis, and I'm just dangerous enough to understand one-way analysis of variance.
Yeah.
There, did
Well,
I stun you with my that's it. That's all I got. You got a phone, right?
yeah,
Yes, you're
if this
holding it up.
thing can be hacked and your passwords for Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and your bank accounts can be hacked just by simply an algorithm of just skimming numbers, and your debit card can get hacked at a gas station by putting a plastic debit card reader over the top and faking it. What makes you think an election terminal that has to communicate broadly on the internet wouldn't be hacked or be manipulated? The things that have technology based are
Well,
all prone to errors and manipulation. The simplest way to get around that is to vote with a paper ballot.
Well, and that's ultimately where I'd like to see other
Yeah,
countries have gone back to. They
right.
understand that vote
Yeah,
by mail is riddled with fraud. They understand that electronic means
yeah.
of having jump drives put in to
Yep.
read data at the end of the night
It's
to
the
get the ticker
access.
tape
Yeah. It
is
just invites
once
the access.
again,
Yeah.
you're right, is an avenue, is a
Mhm.
portal for
Right.
corruption.
Mhm.
And is secure. There's no one that can tell me now. This is where I was going with this
Yeah.
point, Ryan. I'm late to the game. Thankfully, guys like Professor David Clements, I was giving him
Mhm.
a PhD rather than his Juris Doctorate degree, uh, and gentlemen like Colonel Sean Smith. I mean, he read his bio on the front. I mean, he wasn't trying to
Right.
impress you, but to impress upon you that he has been steeped in this. In fact, he was hopeful that when he removed himself from
Mhm.
the world of intelligence,
Mhm.
cyber intelligence in the
Right.
United States Air Force, that he could go home. It looks like he's in a very pleasant place,
Yeah.
and doing this interview. He thought he could go back and live life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and this is what I'm realizing, and I hope that more of you do. Once your eyes start to get open, it's no different than your experience with scripture,
Mhm.
the Constitution, scripture, definitely, because every day I see something new as I do my daily devotional. But once your eyes start to get open, it's hard to retreat.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking with Darren about today. Darren lost his congressional race by less than 1%. I don't even know the final who. And you know what?
Yeah.
I don't believe that Darren lost his election. I'm
Mhm.
done believing anything that happens through the Illinois State Board of Elections. They
Yep.
are a fraudulent organization.
Yep.
It's been, and it's not me saying that. It's here. I just read you
Yeah.
the article from American Thinker. It's
Mhm.
the American Thinker saying that. Why? Because they're not living up to their constitutional responsibility. They're
Yep.
not cleaning their voter rolls. We know that there are hundreds of thousands of inactive voters. They're not following the legal protocols. I mean, eh, this is what it says. National Voter Registration Act of 1993. They're in violation of that. The U.S. Constitution, in violation of that. Was the number of votes counted equal to the number of voters who voted? When we start finding that there are overvotes, 26 counties had more people voting in them in 2022 than they had registered voters.
Yep. That's
And
a problem.
it's not the number. You say, well, 27,000 wouldn't have made a difference when it came to the gubernatorial race because JB won by 400,000 votes. Well, I'm glad that you bring that up, because before we go back to Colonel Sean Smith, because I want to give him a little bit more time, because I encourage all of you to go out to Rumble and just Google Colonel Sean Smith. It's gonna pop. You can watch this interview in its entirety. It's about an hour long. And why are these videos, these documentaries, so long? Because they can't be done in a reel. They it just doesn't happen.
Right. You have to have long form interviews with these people that expose this.
I hit the wrong button. Did you see that? I hit my button again. Start
all right.
time.
You're good.
Well, because I'm getting excited with my hands, and my hands
a monkey button around over there.
but this is what I'm pressing in on is, yes, they're long videos. Yes, Colonel Smith, it's hard to understand because this is very high level as they break down what is going on. If everyone could understand it, he said that earlier. He said he doesn't expect the normal person to have a clue of what's going on. You know, most people are more concerned about getting home at this hour, 4:37, making dinner, getting the kids to wherever they need to be, you know, doing the day in, day out activities, trying to just survive the day. And ultimately, in the midst of the Biden economy, Bidenomics, or a Biden bloodbath, which is what it's turning into for everybody, a Biden bloodbath. And oh, by the way, put that in the comment section. You can go to that website, bidenbloodbath.com. Ryan, it's fascinating to look at the statistics on Joe Biden's regime, and I love the fact that the Trump administration or the Trump campaign is flipping the whole bloodbath thing right back on Joe and saying, "No, Joe, I think we know where the bloodbath is, and it's what you are doing to the people of the United States." But I got super excited there, and I know I was going to head back to Colonel Sean Smith, and I had another point to make, and it was Darren Bailey.
Yeah.
Boy, that was a save. Wow.
You caught that one.
I did. I captured it right there.
So it was just whether you think he actually lost or not. What was the path?
It's not even that. If he, who cares? We can't retreat.
Yep.
And Darren, and I know Darren was taking a moment or two to reevaluate, to step back. But the same message came from Darren. Darren said, we've got to continue to push forward. The grassroots movement is moving. You know, we had to go out because of the Illinois GOP. We had to go out and build a shadow or a parallel organization for the people of Illinois. We were, and I'm not going to say the People's Party because that sounds like too much like the People's Republic of China, which I love it when people say that. Don't say People's Republic of China. That's the Communist Chinese Party.
Yeah.
The people of China, I'm sure, are very good people. There's a billion of them, right? They have very little to do. They're like you and I, Ryan. They're just going to work every day. They're trying to understand what is happening just to survive. But ultimately, as I was saying about Darren, we've got to push in. We need to fill out every precinct committee seat in Illinois. You know what that would take to do? Roughly 10,500 people in Illinois. You know, when doctor, there I got to get it out of my head. Professor. He's the professor. I know this. Not doctor, professor. Professor, Juris Doctorate degree. When Professor Clements says that if each county could formulate 300 people,
Mm-hmm.
in 102 counties, I can do the math on that. That's roughly 3,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good start. I
Yeah.
would question if we have actually 3,000 precinct committee people across the state of Illinois.
Yeah.
That would be a third of the precinct.
Well, you look at the
Because-
messaging, and when the Democrats say one person, one vote, they want these Voting Rights Act passed. Look at the numbers you just read from the Illinois thing.
Yeah.
How many more extra votes that were than voters? Where's their answer to this metric about there's more votes than actual voters? So
Yeah.
they want no IDs because that's racist. But you have more votes than
27,000
voters.
more votes counted than voters who voted.
I want to know their answer to that because they're all about one vote, one person. But
Yeah.
they've got thousands of more votes than people. So how's that working out for them? Really well, I
Well, I
guess.
mean, and that's what we can do. And as a people, so Darren and I talked about this. One of the best tools that we have right now going for us is we have an organization called CERIS. I too, once again, I gotta, take responsibility. I wasn't giving CERIS near the credit that, because they came on the scene. They were
Mhm.
giving, they said they want to turn the state red by 2030. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, good luck. Okay, what's your plan? And they had a plan. Now it needed to be built out, but they knew that you just can't this isn't a just add water type of thing. This
Right.
isn't something where you say, oh, it's a turnkey operation. Here, put this in place, and suddenly the next thing you know, no, when they started introducing this was in 2020. It was in 2021, 2020. CERIS came on the scene. They had roughly 4 election cycles, 10 years to turn the state red. They have a program, and I encourage people to go to your local Republican Party and research CERIS, SURRUS, and it is a think tank, but they also drive a back end component to reaching each and every voter and going through the voting rolls themselves. See, if we're going to wait for the Illinois State Board of Elections or any board of elections throughout any state to clean
Right.
up their data rolls, they're
Mhm.
not going to do it. They know that they've been exposed for that. We know what plan B is, where they're going next. They're going to start flooding the voter rolls with undocumented, illegal immigrants here in our country. That's the next step. It's not going to happen right away because
Yep.
first and foremost, they need to change the census data so they can increase the electoral presence
Mhm.
throughout their state, but also getting more congressional seats. I mean, these folks sit around every day and they believe what we're doing here today is a threat to democracy.
Yeah.
Not the guy that's in the White House.
Yeah.
He's not a threat to democracy. In fact, I heard him call Trump a dictator. But wait a second.
His
The
stance on abortion is even less conservative than what we would like.
Yeah. Well, but Trump is a dictator, says the guy who just went against and even boldly proclaimed that he was going against the Supreme Court's ruling
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
canceling student debt. And there's
Yeah.
no such thing as
The guy
canceling.
the guy saying he's all about law and order and unity and decency is sure showing the opposite of what he's doing.
Well, and to call somebody a dictator is usually as
Yeah,
we always say,
Democrat way
you
of life.
watch
They
what they're
always call
saying because
you
what they're saying is who they are. It's
Yeah.
mere projection. All they're doing is making a proclamation. It's a total false flag. It's to get you looking over here and saying,
Yep.
"Oh yeah, Trump's a dictator. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
going to come in and he's going to dictate.
He
He's
got
going to
money from Russia, he got money
Yeah.
from Ukraine, he got all this money for his
You know
lawsuit.
what that man's going to try to do? He's going to try to make us energy independent again. He's going to try securing our border,
Yeah.
which is a violation of those immigrants. He's going to try to make America great again. When has America ever been great? I love it when they ask that
Yeah.
question. Every day that we are alive,
Yeah.
America is great.
To be able to do what you and I are doing, that's what
Yes.
makes America America.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be
That's
able to
the
do this
greatest.
in Russia. We wouldn't be able to do this in North Korea. We'd be stabbed in the head or, taken out back and shot execution
They would have
style.
already identified where my studio was, and they would have hauled me out of here in shackles.
We would have
That's
been
what makes
we've been
America
arrested
great.
for hate speech. Now we're
Yeah.
cutting off free speech in the UK too.
All right. Well, hold on, because I know that. Oh, there, I turned my camera off again. See, I don't have to move very far. Wow. I
Look at
really
that.
turned it. I
Like
really turned it
Velcro.
off. I'm using my. Hold on for a second. Let's see if my camera. I must have. Oh, I went on to my computer camera. That's pretty.
Switched
That's
it.
pretty
Nice,
special.
man. I think in your settings,
Let me
right?
see what happened here. Let me go back into my
Settings and then
settings. I'm in
camera
there.
maybe.
Yeah, I'm in
Choose
there.
from.
I think that. Am I coming back on? Oh, there I am.
There you are.
Jeez.
Sounds catching up with the video.
Ryan, what is going on here? This is
Your
I
video's
get I just get
delayed
carried away,
with your
but
sound
is it?
a little bit.
Okay,
It's not catching
hold
up
on for
yet.
a second. Let me see if I can go back in, and I can go back into my camera. It must be playing.
Yeah, it's playing. It's just you're a little bit of a delay.
I hate to go to that other shot, because then you start seeing the not so pleasant studio that I'm in. How does it look now?
You're on. It's just I don't know if the sound hasn't caught up to the video, so it's like a delay when you're speaking. But
Huh.
you're on.
Well, that's not a pleasant experience. Let me
Yeah,
see if
I can hear you
tune my
speak
camera.
first before you actually see the words come out. So it's kind of weird. There's a delay. I don't know if that's because of the camera switch.
Well, I don't know what to do other than I did hit the stop cam. Maybe I should try that again. Did that help with anything?
Try it again. Let's see if I caught up. Now you're back on.
Okay. I see I'm in on my audio and looking at my microphone. Isn't this great that we get to do this on the fly? And it seems like I continue to have
There you
issues
go.
of
You
did
look
it
better.
help any?
Yeah, you look like you were watching a Japanese movie there for a minute. You were talking way faster than you were actually speaking.
That might help the programming. But as I said, I want to get back to Colonel Sean Smith, and I
Yeah.
encourage all of you to realize what we're talking about. Go to Frank's speech. Look at the plan that's out there. Still working for me. You're good here. Thank you, Bob. You know what? It's good to have loyal friends. I got to
Yeah.
know Berwin Bob from the Berwin Township. Berwin Bob, he's also a delegate for President Donald J. Trump. But Bob is a true American patriot. He's also a faithful friend and follower of the DPB show and Darren Bailey.
Yeah,
But
he
as I
follows me
said,
now too, I think on Facebook.
I didn't walk my thought out because I keep getting interrupted in my thought process. I'm sorry. Darren Bailey's going to continue to push forward. He's going to encourage all of us to do that. We need 10,500 foot soldiers. We need to fortify our counties. We need to mobilize people. Granted, we're not looking for a lot of people, as that's what David Clements says in his documentary thing. Sound like Joe Biden, the thing. In his documentary, Let My People Go. It's so important we mobilize, but let's get back to adding to the stage
Yep.
Colonel Sean Smith, because I think it's important we hear.
Their
This is
Ministry
another
of
one
State
I'm encouraging you
Security
to go out and look
to
for.
design exploits and to get those exploits installed into systems that are being fabricated under their watch and supervision in mainland China. Even when you're buying a computer system or a component that's nominally made by, for example, a Taiwanese company, and a lot of US semiconductors are made by the Taiwanese semiconductor corporations, many of those are not actually fabricating on Taiwan. They are what are called fabless semiconductor corporations or companies. In other words, they do the design, but they're not doing the manufacturing. The manufacturing is occurring in a few regions within China. For 5 or 6 years, every single laptop that Hewlett Packard
Wait a
and
minute.
Dell
Hold
sold
on.
in
Hold
the
on,
United
Sean.
States.
Hold on, Sean.
Yeah.
What are you
brand
telling
new
us that
facility.
something? Are you telling us that something is made in China?
Yeah. That brand new chip factory they built in Taiwan, they're not actually making things there. It's still in China.
Yeah.
States,
Keep going.
some of which are being used in our voting systems and have been for several years.
And now they're
Every
using
single
it
one
in
of
our
them is
voting system.
manufactured
No, they're
entirely
not.
in China.
It's the safest and
Then you
securest
get to
election ever.
components like
Conspiracy.
memory or server architecture or modems that are installed in them. The bottom line is that there is no supply chain security when you look at the voluntary voting system standards that are promulgated by the Election Assistance Commission, which was chartered by statute under the Help America Vote Act of 2002. They are the organization that specifies the voluntary voting system standards for US voting systems. So the vendors bring their systems forward to an Election Assistance Commission accredited voting system testing lab, and then that testing lab is supposed to test those systems to those standards. As of right now, and since 2005, there is not a single voting system in the United States that is certified to a standard newer than 2005. So there have been several additions. There's a 2002 Federal Election Commission voting system standards, and then there have been 3 editions of the EAC's voluntary voting system guidelines.
So basically, in a nutshell, we're just flying by the seat of our pants because we haven't caught up with the systems.
Yep.
And we're trying to apply yesterday's technology to today's technology. And no wonder, golly, these are foolproof and secure elections.
Yeah.
I want to play just a couple more minutes and then I'm going to cut this loose because
Yep.
I want to end up the show, but you've got to go out and watch. You got to go out and watch this second part of the documentary of Let My People Go, because this guy is brilliant. I mean, you're going to find yourself going back and listening to this gentleman. What does he have to gain?
Mhm.
He,
I hope he
he's
doesn't
already
have
had
any
a
connection to the Clintons, because that would be
Yeah.
really terrible.
well, and what does he have to lose? He
Yeah.
knows the cost.
Right.
It's his future. It's his
Mhm.
family's future. That
Yeah.
guy's not very old. It's his
Right.
children and it's his grandchildren. And that's why I'm doing this. This is why Darren Bailey's doing it.
Yep.
Unequivocally, it's always been stated why we're in it, for the reason of God and family and then country. And we're in it because of our families, of our faith. And we see that slowly being eroded. No, not even slowly. It used to be slowly. Now it's picked up at a pace where they're trying to undermine the entirety of what they call the nuclear family. I just call
Yeah.
it the family.
Mhm.
God-fearing families.
Yep.
They are so intimidated by people of faith, by virtue. That to them is a death sentence, and it's really sad because you know what? I thought we could coexist.
Yep.
You got it on all your bumpers, stickers. I mean, aren't we supposed to be coexisting?
Who are their targets as the voting bloc? Single women, single issue voters that have no family ties. They're not married. They don't have kids. Those are the easy targets for the Democrat Party, and undocumented people.
Well, and that's why they continue to grow their base.
Yeah.
That's why the border is open. That's why we see what we do every
Yep.
day in and out. Let's go ahead and just play a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to cut this loose. I know we're
2005 was version 1, 2015 was version 1.1, I believe, and then 2021 was version 2 finally. Not only aren't there any voting systems that are certified to a newer standard than 2005, which, by the way, is before the iPhone came out, but
wow.
none of those voting system standards include any provisions for supply chain security until the 2021 standards. And there are no systems certified to those standards, but also the only discussion of supply system or supply chain security in those voting system standards is an assertion that the vendors must have a strategy or a plan for supply chain security. There's no standard or mechanism for inspection or enforcement. And in fact, the voting system testing labs have no expertise. They have no personnel. So there is effectively no supply chain security whatsoever in American voting systems. And we've been using these systems in election after election. The Election Assistance Commission was warned by the National Institutes for Standards and Technology, the NIST, which by law, by statute, is the technical advisor to the EAC's Technical Guidelines Development Committee. So the Technical Guidelines Development Committee is what develops the voting system standards and then recommends them to the Election Assistance Commission's 3 commissioners for their certification of those standards. The NIST warned the EAC in 2015 that supply chain security was critical and that without effective supply chain security, you could have not only compromises, but undetectable compromises, which would fully prevent the accomplishment of missions, including the effective use for accurate and trustworthy election outcomes. The EAC did nothing. They never warned the public. We've had numerous supply chain compromises of critical national security systems in the last 8 years. Not one time has the Election Assistance Commission put out any kind of a warning to the public or to election officials in the states telling them, look, your systems may not be trustworthy.
He's going to cover windfall.
SolarWinds was a supply chain
SolarWinds,
attack.
I'm sorry.
It was a corruption of a software element. They spoofed a certificate and then they inserted malware. Once they got a foothold, if you don't know what SolarWinds is, look it up. SolarWinds was one of the most significant, severe supply chain compromises in
You
U.S.
remember
history.
that, right, Ryan?
Yeah.
Pretty much every single major department and branch of the federal government, many state governments, many large corporations, they were using this SolarWinds Orion network management appliance and software, and they corrupted it, and the adversary had a foothold.
Even over the last few years, where we've had repeatedly instances where election systems have performed in a way that they were clearly inaccurate.
So this is just 2023 supply chain attacks. Airbus, Norton, the antivirus malware firewall people,
Colonial
Microsoft, Colonial Pipeline. What I like about the Colonial Pipeline example is that's critical infrastructure. It
Yeah.
was supposed to be secured by the same people securing election critical infrastructure. That's how well they did. By
Yeah.
the way, the people, CISA, under DHS, Chris Krebs people, they were hacked by the SolarWinds supply chain compromise. Their servers were compromised for at least, we don't know how long, at least 10 months, and they had no idea. They never found it. Mandiant FireEye found it and let them know.
Government and industry representatives from the election security community issued a joint statement reflecting a consensus perspective that the 2020 election was the most secure in U.S. history.
I think that's a great place to
It
pause.
is most secure ever.
And you know what? This is under testifying on a congressional hearing.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing that people, and that's why I don't believe this is, they have just created the division in our country.
Yeah.
The Dems versus the Republicans.
Yeah.
We're merely pawns in their game.
Yep. This goes way beyond party lines.
It so goes beyond party lines. I mean, it is
This is now borderline evil versus good territory. I
well,
mean,
at what level?
corrupt individuals.
Once again, Colonel Sean Smith, go to Rumble, watch the interview. Let My People Go. It was a full interview. He's on board with David Clements. You know, as I said, I apologize to you as my audience, to people that have heard my voice, the DPB show. Yes, I founded the show based on my inability, my gift of failure, similar to Dan Bongino, but not quite at that level. I don't compare myself to Dan the man. I am me. I'm unique in who I am, but I did run for office twice. It led me to run to be on a radio show with a local radio station. And I came out saying Illinois is broken. Corruption. We are in the land of corruption. You know, we are at the epicenter, I believe. Part of the reason I believe that God has continued to keep me right here with my feet planted in Illinois. As much as I want to escape, like Snake Lipskin. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. from Escape from New York.
Yeah.
As much as I'd like to escape this state, I realize what keeps me here. First and foremost, it goes back to what I just said a minute ago: God, family, and country. Illinois is the epicenter. It is full of demonic people.
Mhm.
Not that they're people who are you can readily see as demonic. They are people who have opened their hearts to demons, to a spirit of death. They have embraced it. I listened to Governor Pritzker talk about, the infanticide of children, just casually brushing it off,
Yep.
saying, "Aren't you more concerned about the woman?" Yes, I'm concerned
Mhm.
about the woman.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm more concerned when she does that to a child
Yep.
inside of her, because she will forever be haunted by that child.
Well, then
It
you
never
had
goes
yeah.
away.
Then you had Whoopi's comments yesterday on The View. Um, Never mind the fact that we have 10 commandments and we're supposed to follow them. She made a case that you don't have to follow thou shalt not kill because we have wars and people get killed all the time. But it's not thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not murder. There's a
Yes,
difference between killing for righteous
killing.
reasons and just cause and murdering innocent life. And that's what they're
That's right.
doing. And they're ignoring that fact of it.
Well, and as David Clements points out, especially about at the hour and 57-minute mark in his documentary, Let My People Go, is this: we believe and worship a
Mhm.
sovereign God. This isn't God's doing.
Right.
God didn't create the world to
Yep.
look and act like it is.
Mhm.
The
Yep.
book of Acts lays out how the early church responded to Jesus's crucifixion and resurrection.
Mhm.
Um, no, we're supposed to live out differently. Hence the reason God sent his only son to this earth is
Yep.
to show us the way. He knew the way, and
He created people and people chose the path they're on. They chose evil. They chose to commit the things they did. People get mad at God all they want for allowing things to happen, but he gave us the free will to choose to do certain things.
yeah.
You
And
choose
so if
evil.
it's going to be, it is up to each one of us.
Mhm.
We have to fill the gap. Whether it's the digital gap, the cyber gap, we have to fill the gap. We need to educate ourselves. God gave us the ability,
Mhm.
the intellect. Is this stuff way beyond my comprehension level?
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
I am not that smart.
Yeah.
However, Colonel Sean Smith has done the video. David Clements has done a video. Why? They want us to share it with as many people. If it takes you multiple times of viewing it
Mhm.
just to understand, I know when I share this with somebody whether they've watched it. You know how I know? And this applies to almost any video, Ryan.
Yeah.
I know somebody's watching it because they call me. I don't have to call them and ask them what they thought.
Yeah.
They were like, "Wow, man, oh boy, things are happening."
Yeah.
I never thought this was possible, but
Yeah. Yep.
hey, I think this is a good place. I've got to jump off this episode of the DPB show because I have to head over to Eureka, the college home of President Ronald Reagan.
Yep.
And I've got to do that yet tonight, but I do always appreciate you joining us, Ryan. You can find Ryan at the ryanmacshow.com. It's up there in the comment section. Bob, always good to have you. And those of you, please like and share. Send this a messaging out. You, me, I'm just one of you. We're the last stand.
Mhm.
If we don't do it, then who will?
Yep.
And so, hey, as always, I bid you peace. I love you. Jesus loves you so much more than I ever could. But I do love you. And just remember, we cannot retreat. We are in for the fight.
Yep.
God has equipped us. Put on the armor every day. He has equipped us. He will not fail us. He will not abandon us. We are his. Hey, go out and just keep fighting. Until Thursday, I am signing off. Farewell.